We're going to take a little break from Acts in our Bible reading plan to jump over to the book of Galatians, because this is the first letter that Paul wrote back to the churches that he started in Galatia on his first missionary journey. If you remember from chapters 13 and 14 of Acts, Paul had gone from, he went from over here, Antioch in Syria, he went through Cyprus, he ends up going up through here, and then he goes, starting in Antioch in Pisidia, down through Iconium, Lystra, Derbe, this whole area. If you notice, this is in southern Galatia, so this is a region in the Roman Empire, in pink there. And when he was going through there, he started the churches. Many people came to faith, even though there was some struggles and some trials, and they were kicked out and chased out and all those sorts of things. The church was started, and so now he writes this letter back to the churches. Now, most likely this was even before Acts chapter 15, because Paul never mentions the council in Jerusalem from Acts 15. So this is probably written right after Paul leaves. Okay, so it says this. This is a letter from Paul, an apostle. I was not appointed by any group of people or any human authority, but by Jesus himself, by Jesus Christ himself, and by God the Father who raised Jesus from the dead. And all the brothers and sisters here join me in sending this letter to the churches of Galatia. Okay, so he's writing back to the churches that he had started in that region. This is great. He reminds them in verse 4, Jesus gave his life for our sins to rescue us from this evil world. Okay, now look at what he says in verse 6, because this is going to sort of help us understand why he's writing this little letter. He says, I am shocked that you are turning away so soon from God, who called you to himself through the loving mercy of Christ. You're following a different way that pretends to be the good news, but is not the good news at all. You're being fooled by those who deliberately twist the truth concerning Christ. Okay, so it's important to understand that after Paul left the area, he leaves his, he had gone through here and then he leaves. Right after he came back to Antioch, shortly after that, a group came through. We're going to call them the Judaizers, because what they were sort of pseudo-Christians, and they came into the places where Paul just had planted the church, and they said, listen, Paul left something out. He sort of forgot to tell you that, Jesus is great, grace is great, but you still have to jump through these other hoops in order to be saved. So see, it's the same issue that came up in the Council of Jerusalem in Acts chapter 15 that we just looked at. Do these new converts have to be circumcised? Because that's something that they would have to do if they wanted to become Jewish. And so the Judaizers came in there because they're trying to make the Gentiles Jewish, right? So Judaize, they're trying to Judaize the Gentiles. And they're saying, you've got to do this. The grace of Jesus isn't enough. You also have to do these works before he accepts you as his people. And what Paul is saying is, that is not good news at all. You're being fooled by those people. Don't let it happen. And you can see as you read through this letter, Paul's pretty passionate about this. He says, Dear brothers and sisters, I want you to understand that the gospel message I preach is not based on mere human reasoning. I received my message from no human source, and no one taught me. Instead, I received it by direct revelation from Jesus Christ. He's trying to help them to understand. He's got no ulterior motives here. He's not making this up. This came from Jesus. God revealed this to him. We're going to see that a little bit more in the next chapter. God revealed this to him, and they should listen to this and don't fall for the message of the Judaizers. Okay, so that sets up chapter 1 of Galatians. So go ahead and read chapter 1. We'll continue to come back to these themes over these next few chapters. But you're ready for Galatians 1, and we'll see you tomorrow for Galatians chapter 2.